All right, everybody. Told you guys we would start this when I was getting ready or getting close. So I don't know how much commentating I'm gonna do. We're gonna walk into this. I'm here with Lipstick, is what we're gonna call her, and she's been kind enough to let me come in here and meet all these people, and she's gonna guide me through this. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around so you guys can see what's going on, and we're gonna walk right into this thing. So here we are. So back this way, there's nothing going on. We're at Third and Main right now, heading to the Justice Center. So let's go, guys. If I forget, that statue's our meetup spot, just so you guys know. Let's stop right here for a sec. So they got information desk out here. Looks like they're giving stuff out. There's got bottled waters, things for people. They help make signs, it looks like. This is what? So apparently they have a platform for people to speak to everybody out here, and it's over here on this, right by the Justice Center. Camera back around. We're gonna sit down and have a discussion. Hold on. All right, guys. So this is Lipstick. She's got a mask on, but she doesn't really want her face shown, so I'm not gonna show you too much of her. But I'm gonna flip my phone around so the speaker's towards her, so you guys can hear what she has to say. So go ahead. They're all yours.
I also just first want to say that I'm a white woman, and I do not want my voice to speak for any POC. This is from my perspective, having been down here a couple months. I am not the voice of any black person, and I do not want that to be interpreted that way. I've just gotten this platform, and I wanted to talk about the different groups we've got going on over here. So when all of this began, we had two groups, Rose City Justice and the protesters. And Rose City Justice would gather inner East End, kind of where we parked,
Right.
across the river. And every night they would have these peaceful protests that were super great, super awesome. And the cops would never show up. While down here, people were still getting gassed, people were still facing brutality from the police. It caused a division because a lot of the people down here thought that it wasn't fair that those people had worked with the police to create, they got a license, the cops would never show up there, no one was going there and getting gassed. So our mayor, Ted Wheeler, and you can hear people yelling, "Fuck Ted Wheeler," mostly from that side. He came out here a couple nights ago, about a week ago, got gassed, and the people that were just speaking up there were letting him speak, giving him a platform. It was a PR stunt, and a lot of people here have a problem with those people speaking because they haven't necessarily been giving everyone and every one of the black voices in our community the right to speak. It feels kind of political. It feels like they are part of some type of politics. They do not stand for the violence, which is kind of their side of things, but yet they don't say much about it. And then you've got that group over there, and that's why there's this sort of division. I do think it's good that we have people down here speaking about nonviolence and speaking about the message, which is that Black Lives Matter, which continues the narrative over there so we remember why we're here in the first place versus it being an anarchy run. And, you know, it feels very set up over there. These people, the Rose City Justice, have been outed as being ex-cops, and it feels like it could be some kind of ploy. They do speak good things. They do say, you know, Black Lives Matter. They do speak about Black issues, which is positive. But I do think there are negatives to both of these sides that have to be taken into account. Just because they're preaching nonviolence and talking about Black issues does not mean that they're not necessarily working with politicians here that are telling them to push that narrative.
So I'd also like to point out, guys, the group that was gathered around the speaker is clearing out pretty quickly. And it also looks like the group on the other side of the block that we originally walked through is growing. So kind of an interesting dynamic, really. Um, and just so you guys know, Lipstick here has been down here almost every single night since the start of it. Um, she's been shot with 2 rubber bullets. One was a direct hit and one was a graze. Um, she's been gassed multiple times. I'm pretty sure she has a gas mask in her right. Well, it's right there. So if the tear gas starts coming, she's already ready for it. She comes down here to help give first aid to people when they're hurt, when they're injured. But obviously, she definitely believes in the protest side of this as well. So what's interesting is her and I've talked a lot over the last couple of days, and one of the most shocking things that she told me was that from her perspective, she has seen far more brutality from the police rather than the feds. That when the feds showed up, although it was perceived as an escalation of sorts, um, the feds didn't actually engage with the people the same way that the police had been for over a month, right?
Right, and I think part of that is because the feds are here to protect this building here. That's what they protect. However, the city police, they can go anywhere. They used to chase us 13 blocks west, and they're all over the city. They can gas us at any point. The feds can only gas us right here, and there definitely has been a rise in the anarchy that's happened here. You just heard that firework since the feds have arrived. But the original protesters, which I was a part of, did not have the same level of violence against the feds or against the police as there is now. It's definitely escalated. I think it's changed from a Black Lives Matter issue into more of a constitutional issue and a constitutional right issue that people are now fighting. It's also just escalated in mainstream media. People are starting to find out that this is happening, and they're taking advantage of the situation. Whereas before, it really was way more peaceful, and we were still met with extreme brutality from the police, even more so, in my opinion, than the feds. It could be because the feds are kind of hiding behind this fence over there, protecting the courthouse, whereas the police were actually allowed to come out and engage with us on the street.
Right. And I'd also like to point out, guys, that the protests originally um, revolved around the federal or the
Justice Center.
It's called the Justice Center, and that's actually where the police are. The courthouse just happens to be next door. So the target of the protesters in the beginning was never the courthouse. But obviously, as the feds came, the crowds here grew, and these buildings are literally right next to each other.
So this was originally, this park here that we're sitting in was actually where the protests began. There was a fence around this building here. There were floodlights, and the people would actually be able to come up to the fence and speak with the police directly. I've had multiple conversations with the police. When the feds showed up, it just so happens that the federal building, the federal courthouse, is right next door. I don't know if that was some kind of political point that, you know, now it seems that everyone's gathering here to attack the feds. But this has been the meetup spot since, you know, late May. And the feds have only been here for about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5. But this has been where I've come to protest. This has been at least the meetup spot for months now.
So, John, I just saw your comment. That's an interesting take. You should add more to that. I'm curious what you mean by that. Um, it's also what's interesting as I sit here in this park and I watch what's going on to the left of me versus what's happening right in front of me in front of the Justice Center. The crowd again is almost gone in front of the Justice Center, and it's almost like the protesters. It's not about protesting against police brutality anymore, which they've got plenty of here, um, just as being protesters. Now it seems about just fighting the feds, and I do believe I see. Are those feds over there behind that fence?
They probably are. If you see people behind there, that's probably feds. I'm
Okay.
blind as a bat. Usually this is what happens around 10. They end their speech. Half the people leave. Half the people join the mob over there. I do think that a lot of the people out here who have been out here for a long time and are educated on the groups out here do not trust the people that were just speaking. Although they seem, I like having them here because they do keep people in check, that we're here for Black lives and that we're not here to just fight the feds. I think it is human nature to a degree for people to, like you were saying with the car crash, people are going to go where the action is. And that's where the action is now. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 30, 40 minutes, we start hearing bombs, start hearing gas shooted from over there. Nothing happens over here anymore. This is where it used to come from. Now it's over here. It does take until about 2 a.m. when the crowd's really thinned and it really is a lot of people perpetrating for the feds to actually come out from behind the fence. It's usually a pretty big back and forth between the crowd and the feds up until then.
Hold on, guys. I'm going to look at something really, really quick. Okay. So, what has been your direct experience with the police versus with the feds?
I get the vibe and the sense from the feds that they were definitely sent here. There's definitely a distinction between, you can tell that the feds and the cops here are not necessarily getting along. I think the cops feel like this is our turf, and I can tell sometimes the feds even seem a little bit skittish, and you can tell that they are a little bit fearful about the protesters out here and what could happen. As far as the police brutality goes, I was shot in the leg. I received a hematoma and I had my hands in the air. No one was shooting fireworks. No one was fucking with anybody at that point. We were walking out past curfew and they gassed us and they shot me straight in the leg. That's when I was hit straight on. And that was about 3 blocks from here. It was a group of about 16 of us exiting the protest. And we were met with that kind of brutality. At that point, I had never been shot with tear gas. I had never been shot. I didn't have any equipment on me, so that tear gas really fucked with me. And that tear gas does fuck with a lot of people. Like, it's gnarly. It's nothing to be fucked with. And it does crowd control pretty quick. People are a lot more prepared nowadays. I've seen less cops out here since the feds have arrived. I don't know what kind of deal they've got worked out. I don't know if the feds have kind of taken over at this point, but the cops at this point don't even protect the Justice Building.
There's not even a fence.
No, they're not even out here at this point. Whereas before it was like this, but right here. But the feds, they throw tear gas into the crowd, and it's dangerous because it can hit people, and that's what happened to Donovan LaBelle. It hit him straight in the forehead. The tear gas canisters.
For those of you guys that don't know, Donovan LaBelle is a protester that was shot directly in the forehead with a rubber bullet. It fractured his skull. What were the other injuries to him?
He had to get facial reconstructive surgery, and he almost died. And you can look up the videos if you're not afraid of some gruesome shit, because he is coughing up blood, and it's very, very, very intense.
Yeah, I'm gonna warn you guys right now. It's pretty gnarly. Rubber bullets. They may be rubber, but they are moving quick. So it's actually really quiet right now, and I got to be honest with you, it's kind of eerie. There's a weird vibe coming from over there. It looks like they've got people. Looks like we have feds behind the fence over here, and the crowd is moving closer to the fence. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this camera around so you guys can see.
This is usually what happens every night.
This is what happens every night?
Yep. It gets quiet. There is definitely like a standoff type situation for at least an hour. Until someone throws, whether it be a water bottle, whether it be a firework, um, whatever it is that incites them to use violence, then they will start. But for the time being, it's usually just a standoff. And the feds stand there with their AR-15s behind the fence, and the protesters yell with blowhorns. We've got people with drums down here. A lot of people have shields, and they'll bang them against the wall. But it's usually like this for a while. And
Sorry, I had to flip the phone, guys.
It's not very loud. It's like this almost every night.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of like the calm before the storms. It definitely has that feel. There's a vibe here that is very different from anything I've ever felt before. You can almost, like, the tension in the air is like literally palpable, guys. It's really interesting. One of the comments that just came up was asking if you were here when they were trying to set fires to the justice or to the courthouse.
Yes, I was. I've seen multiple fires set. Before the feds came, I did see a fire. They had a fenced off parking lot about 4 blocks from here. And this dumpster, which was a huge dumpster, the biggest dumpster I've ever seen in my life, set fire. And it was in a fenced off area. And it seemed very much like a ploy from the police. You can look up videos. There are videos of police breaking windows and making it look like it was protesters. I was here, however, when the fire started at the federal building. It did not light the building on fire in any way. It was just in front of that fence. The worst thing I've seen the protesters do is shoot basically city, the kind of fireworks you'd see for the 4th of July in your city. They'll shoot those at the Justice Center. But I've never seen the Justice Center or the federal courthouse actually catch fire. It's just been, big fires that people will throw pallets over the fence and continue to light. They go out after 10 minutes, but I've never seen the buildings actually catch on fire.
And guys, these are just like most federal buildings in most state capitals. These are stone buildings. So even if they threw a Molotov cocktail or pallets over fence and that were lit on fire, these buildings aren't going to catch fire like that. So channing's starting to increase now. I'm sure you guys can hear that.
If you want to move in, we can. It's kind of up to you.
Well, we will here in a second. Do you guys have any questions, any other questions for Lipstick before we move back into the crowd and we won't be able to actually sit here and talk? We're waiting on the delay. There's a delay in the comments from when we talk.
No, that's fine.
So.
Yeah, I do see someone, Mike Wilkinson, commented they are intended to be bounced. That has been broken almost every night I've been here. I've seen people hit directly. I've been hit directly. I don't know that that's on purpose, and I'm not going to say that it is on purpose, but at the same time, I know that it has happened, and the right responsibility to make sure it hits the ground has not been taken. Whether that's because they're throwing it over a 6-foot fence or not, I don't know, but I do know that has not been followed correctly.
So somebody just commented that that clearly these people don't have jobs. So let's clarify that real quick.
I'm a man. Become, a second job to a lot of people out here. And, at first with COVID, I was unemployed due to COVID, and a lot of people were, and I think that's why so many protests started and it was so big. But at the same time, there's EMTs out here that won't show their face because they actually work as an EMT every single day, and they're out here to keep people safe. The fact that no one out here has jobs would just show that the unemployment rate here in Portland is skyrocketing, which it's not necessarily. And there's 4,000 people here sometimes, and 4 out of 4,000 people, a lot of those people have jobs.
All right, so I don't know who asked this question, but it's a great question. What's the end game for the protesters?
So we actually,
not the ones rioting, the protesters.
So we actually do have a list of 4 things. Ted Wheeler resigning. One of them is cutting the police budget by 50%. I can pull up the other 2. I forget what they are.
So they do have a list of demands. One of which is the mayor that was gassed, Ted Wheeler.
Yes.
That he resigns office. Even though he was out here and he got gassed, the protesters are not impressed with his leadership skills at all. Which I know I've heard on the conservative side of arguments that people have also said that, which is also interesting. Somebody asked what the protest is for. The protest started out being all about Black Lives Matter. But I personally believe, with what I've seen, and not necessarily what I've seen tonight, but what I've seen in the videos leading up to me coming out here, that the message has been lost. And maybe we can talk about that after you get your list of demands.
I think that, I'm out here and I still know why I'm out here, and I've been out here since the beginning. I do think that there are people that are just now joining the protest, which is great. We welcome them with open arms, but they have to understand. I don't know if the feds coming, is what really kicked them to feel that this was a bigger issue. But a lot of the people I know have been out here since the beginning, and every night it is not fuck the feds being chanted. It is, justice for George Floyd, justice for Breonna Taylor. Everyone obviously wants the federal agents to go home, but I think it's kind of remained Black lives as far as most of the people go. I do think there are some anarchists that have taken the feds being here as, an opportunity. But
right.
But I do think that, everyone's out here and they're selling, Black Lives Matter t-shirts, and every time a Black person is on the front lines, they are surrounded by at least 3 or 4 white people with shields. And, I think the message has kind of remained clear. But, there are going to be bad eggs in any organization, and in any type of, this is a large gathering. Not everyone's going to be on the same page. Everyone's out here for a different reason.
And I'd also like to point out, guys, there is a citywide curfew in place in Portland. So every one of these people is already in violation of that citywide ordinance. Now, how you personally feel about city ordinances and things like that is up to you. But every single one of these people is risking at least that violation in just being here. And obviously not everybody here is violent. So it's interesting that, when we see all these clips in the media and things like that, that all we really see is the violence. Like this dude sitting directly in front of me, he doesn't know that he's on camera right now, but you guys have been watching him for a while. He's just sitting there banging on his drum. He's not bothering anybody. Making a little bit of noise, and but he looks like he's just enjoying himself. And the fact that Lipstick here goes to work 45 hours a week and then makes time to come out here almost every single night. I think she told me she's missed like 3 nights total that she didn't come out here. And after getting to know her a little bit, I'm almost willing to guarantee you that she felt bad that she wasn't here in case something happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like felt like she was going to miss something, So.
Okay, so here's the demands. Defund the Portland Police Bureau by 50% at least and reinvest into the community, especially Black communities. Free all protesters from jail that are currently held. I don't know a lot that have been held for more than 48 hours. Feds out of Portland, and Ted Wheeler resigning. Those are the requests.
So they want the feds out of Portland. They want the mayor to resign. They want to defund the police 50% and reinvest that money into the community, especially Black communities,
and
free all the protesters that are locked up. Now, Lipstick and I had a really great conversation about defunding the police, and she explained what she means by that, and I think one of the problems that this term defund the police it literally does mean defund them, but. And I asked her why they didn't use a better word like demilitarize the police or something along those lines. But Um, defund has been the name that has been attached to this.
I think this is a good thing to show too. Hey.
Yeah, we got to ask permission before we can put them on. So this guy walks around with a garbage bag, and people just walk up and throw garbage away. So he's out here cleaning up in the middle of the protest, in the middle of the. And when they turn to riots, they stay here. They keep working.
And so we're making sure the community stays non-littered, stays safe. You know, every day the park is still clean because there's people out here doing this.
And there's also, I don't know if you guys can see this, but that table over there with the balloons on it, that's actually a water table. That's for people to get, you know, get a bottle of water, and they've got a lot of bottles of water over there. So they're trying to do their part to help make sure, you know.
There's people handing out sandwiches every night. People make tacos, burritos. It's like a very big community. I feel safe. I've come down here alone, which technically on paper is not the right thing to do, but I feel safe in this community, and I feel like I could walk up to almost anyone here and say like, hey, these are some moms. This is the wall of moms.
So those are the women that wear yellow shirts are a part of the wall of moms. Now, we had a conversation about this that I think would be interesting, you know, because as most of you guys know, that when I was on Breaking the Barriers the other day, we had a couple of people on there that have been down here as well. And they said that the vast majority of the women in the Wall of Moms was women that have been down here just dressed differently for that event, or impersonating it, almost trying to paint a narrative. What was your experience with that?
So I was down here a week and a half ago, when it was the second day of the Wall of Moms being a part of the protest. And I was down here as a med. I was on the front lines. I had a shield at the front, and I backed up and was going to help people after the gas was released. There were about 6 or 7 50-year-old women that I helped and poured anti-tear gas solution into their face and eyes, and they were bawling. You know, they were real people. They were 50-year-old women that were crying to me saying, you're the age of my daughter, and I can't believe this is what's actually happening down here. And as much as, you know, their presence is helpful, it is, you know, another thing is, you know, they haven't seen that it's been like this for, you know, almost 2 months now. And a lot of people think it's just the feds, but this is happening in cities everywhere from the police. And although the feds is a scarier thing, which is drawing more people down here, it's the same brutality. But the moms, I do think, whether or not there's impersonators, there are definitely some very real moms, 50-year-old women down here that are getting their asses handed to them. But they're down here, and that's great. And they're here for the cause, and we've been protecting them as much as we can, and they're badass women. Badass 50-year-old women that are leaving their families to come down here and do this shit.
So I don't know if you guys can see this, but I got pretty good eyesight still for an old man. But there's an American flag on a pole up there that they're waving around that is hung upside down, which is a symbol of distress. So I just thought I'd point that out to you. And now the crowd is starting to push more and more towards the courthouse. I don't know if you guys can make that out over there or not, but that is what's happening. And it's interesting, guys. Like, this is honestly, I gotta be real. This isn't what I expected. How long we've been down? I don't know. You guys know how long I've been down here?
Down here for an hour.
Been down here for an hour. So we've been live now for what, 30, almost 40 minutes. And yeah, there's some chants going on that are ugly, and it does seem tense for sure. And what I think I'm watching, guys, I think it looks like this crowd over here, the different crowd that we were talking about earlier, it looks like they're just waiting for a reaction. They're waiting for anything to give them a reason to start the rioting, I guess. It doesn't look like they're intent on rioting, but they're ready to riot, if that makes sense. At least that's how it kind of looks to me. Somebody had asked a question in here, and I didn't see it come by, and then somebody said that was a great question, so I'm going to look for it real quick. Um, so somebody is throwing up a whole lot of hashtags. I'll bet you I know who. Plan if the police walk away. Do they have a plan if the police walk away?
Every time the police have walked away, the entire crowd cheers. It doesn't last for more than 5 minutes. People do start to disperse, but the police are back within 5 minutes at the least.
So you were talking as we were getting closer and closer down here about the kind of like the fact that they'll ramp up for a few days and then they'll then they disappear for a few days or for like a day and everything calms back down. Let's talk about that a little bit.
There's been a couple times where they've crossed the line. The night that Donovan Lavelle guy was shot, they didn't come out once. People were spray painting the courthouse. People were spray painting the Justice Center. Once we go down there, you'll be able to see the spray paint. They didn't come out once, and I do think it's because they were in timeout. And there's been a couple times where they will go really hard one night and they will really fuck the crowd up. And I think the police commissioner, the police chief says they need to back down, and they will have the biggest show out of a crowd and then they will not even appear. And what that does is then the next night, less people will come out and they will use that kind of munition again.
So I'd just like to answer a question here. Somebody said in here for me not to be deceived, right? Like that this has been, look guys, I want to, let's clarify this real quick. There has absolutely been some horrendous things that have happened down here on both sides, okay? There are things that have gone on and things that the rioters that have done that is absolutely wrong, okay? And I don't think anybody would defend that. I'm certainly not trying to defend that. But like I told you guys this morning and like I told you guys before I headed down here, what I wanted to do more than anything was to humanize this event, to show the other side of it, right? Like, so we've all been sitting out here for 40 minutes, and you've seen exactly what I've seen, okay? And it's not all what you see in the clips. Now, yes, is there violence? Absolutely. Is there violence on both sides? Absolutely. Now, if you want to believe that the police are defending their turf and that they're justified, that is 100% your belief, and I'm not going to ask you to change your belief. Now, if you want to believe the protesters have a right to be out here, that is also your belief, right? Like, now, if you want to talk about the different groups, you want to talk about how the rioters are separate from the protesters, because as you guys can see, I know that there are people in this crowd right now that are here to incite violence if they get the opportunity, and maybe they're waiting for a reaction. Maybe I don't know. I'm not going to speak to their intentions, but as of yet, what time is it out here? It's
11.
It's 11. It's after 11 o'clock right now, and from what we hear outside of this is 9 o'clock a new crowd shows up and it just gets chaotic. Well, it's 11 o'clock right now, and it's not all that chaotic. I mean, the chants are starting to pick up. Things are starting to, you can literally feel the tension. Like, it's like I said, it's palpable, you guys. Like, you can see the crowd tightening up closer and closer to the courthouse now. And that's interesting. So, but yeah, I don't want you guys to think that I'm being swayed or being deceived in any way, shape, or form. But I am here to find the truth in the truest form that I can by showing up and actually seeing for myself and sharing that with you guys. So, and then let's see. Somebody wants to know if this crowd is smaller.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty good turnout from what I've seen, but at the same time, I've also seen it packed a block back and this whole park packed as well. So I've seen about 3 times this. This is not a bad turnout though it is
so
Friday.
As far as averages go, where would you put this crowd? Is this above average, average?
In the past 2 weeks, this is about average.
So this is about an average size crowd for the last 2 weeks since the feds have been here. So that's a really interesting point. Um, all right, let's scroll down. So I was looking at some of the other questions. And yeah, you're right. The police. Somebody just commented the police don't have a choice but to be here. Absolutely, their job is to serve and protect. Right? Like they work 12 hours. You know, they work 24 hours a day. They're always on call. Right? There's always an officer ready. Right? Like that's what we've come to expect. So yeah, of course they're going to be down here if a crowd like this shows up. Like that's to be expected. So let's see. So some are in. Okay, they're having their own discussions in here.
I'm gonna run and use the restroom.
All right, she's gonna take off for a second, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and just walk a little bit closer and get some views.
Okay, meet back here though.
Yeah, I'll come right back here. So they actually have porta potties set up out here, guys, and she's gonna head out and use one of them. So I'm gonna come up here past this tree so you guys can get a better look. Um, so yeah, what's interesting, you guys, is it is palpable, and it smells a lot like weed. But it is Portland, so you know they that's legal here. But this is a really interesting experience. I'm not seeing. I do see, however, some of the high-powered lasers off the side of the courthouse. They're shining them up to about the fourth or fifth floor into the windows up there, which is interesting. And I don't know if you guys can see how tightly the group is forming around the fence around the federal building. And I know you guys can't get a really good view from this distance, but um, I have been instructed that if I get too close holding a camera and I don't have permission to film people, it would probably turn into a bad thing. So um, as long as I'm filming like this and by myself, I'm definitely not going to get too close. So um, hmm, this is interesting, you guys. You know, one of the most interesting parts of this that I'm seeing, or that this is reminding me of, is our country was founded literally on the in a rebellious way, right? And a lot of these people do look to be rebelling, and that's an interesting take on it. I don't know how I feel about that though, but there's definitely not a lot of organization to it from different groups. But each individual group seems to have their own agenda, whatever it is that they want. But you can look out in this crowd and you can see that spirit of defiance, that rebellious streak that is literally the reason why America exists, is still alive and well. Whether it's misguided in your opinion or not is you know that's up for you to decide. But obviously, it's still here. Okay, so I'm also starting to see a lot more people with tactical gear, helmets, and things like that starting to walk through the crowd and make their way to the front. Um, Almost everybody in the front of the crowd looks to have helmets on.
If you want to go closer.
All right, lipstick's back. I actually wanted to talk about Antifa a little bit. Let me go to this side of you. Um, so Lipstick and I were having a conversation about Antifa a little bit earlier, and she brought up an interesting point that I didn't actually know. It's something new. So, or it's something I had never heard before. So let's talk about, like, could you? She wants to get away to make sure nobody can hear us. She is, I mean, guys, whether you know this or not, she is absolutely putting herself in harm's way, coming out here with somebody who is not from here, who's recording and talking and doing a live for you guys. So we're trying to be as incognito as possible.
I was talking about how Antifa, a lot of people say Antifa is the violent cause out here. There's a group called the Black Bloc. They are the people you see that are most likely inciting the violence. Antifa is actually just a phrase that's been shortened. It started during the Holocaust, and it's anti-fascist. So anyone who's anti-fascist could be labeled Antifa. Antifa does not mean you are violent. Antifa does not mean that you are out here to cause violence at all. It just means you are anti-fascist. Usually Antifa fights white supremacy, and anti-violent and anti-fascist. Black Bloc is a group that is known for being violent, does preach violence, does think that social change cannot happen without violence. That is a lot of people you see that are dressed fully in black, even though a lot of people out here are. I am.
Well, these are also the people that are wearing tactical helmets,
Yes.
and things like that. And
there is a difference between Antifa and the people who are starting violence. I do not believe in a fascist government, so I guess technically you could consider me Antifa. But does that mean I'm a terrorist? Does that mean that I'm out here to incite violence? No. Anyone that believes in an anti-fascist government would be considered Antifa.
What's interesting though, guys, is like I had never heard of Black Bloc before this conversation with her, and there's always been, and I've looked into Antifa pretty deeply, and it's one of those things that's really hard to find facts on the organization of the group, right? And maybe that's the reason why. Maybe it's been mislabeled or misused. And I'm not saying that's 100% accurate, but that is definitely her opinion of it. And it does mean that maybe we as Americans that want to end the diversity, or not the diversity, but the division in our country, maybe that's something we need to dig into, because if this group is being able to operate without us even knowing their name, for like, I pay attention to a lot of things, and if I don't know their name and I'd never heard of their name, um, like that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, they're definitely flying under the radar if what she's saying is true, and that's something like I can tell you, like I'm definitely going to look into a lot closer. And there, it's so interesting. Another point I'd like to make is a lot of people out here are wearing bike helmets and skateboard helmets and things like that. But I have seen full tactical helmets and things like that. And I know, like, I know for a fact those are very, very expensive to own. So, um, and there's a lot of people out here that have those as well. So, hold on, let's see if there's any questions that people want to ask. So she wants to know if there's a lot of anarchists in Portland.
Sure, yeah, it's mostly a white city. So yeah, of course there are, and there's been a lot of dispute from black black communities about if that's the right way. I have seen black people commit anarchy. I've seen a lot of more white people commit anarchy, and at this point, I'm down here to protect people. I'm not down here to tell people how to protest. And yeah, of course, there's both, but I think you have to recognize that it's human nature. This is just my opinion. No one has to agree. It's human nature for people to get gassed every single night and want to retaliate.
And PNW Youth Liberation Foundation is another.
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider them anarchists. They do speak on some anarchy. They do definitely not speak against violence, but they are mostly an anti-policing of, an anti-peace police. The last thing that they think, in their opinion, we need down here is more cops. And they think that everyone should be able to protest the way they want. I They do keep their shit pretty locked down. They don't post things of them doing violence, but they definitely do not speak against it.
Okay, guys, so it just went quiet again. There was a little bit of chanting, and now it's pretty quiet again. I'm not sure. Is that pretty normal here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people down there have loudspeakers, and when they kind of quiet down, it quiets down.
So as like we were walking in, I don't know if you guys caught it, but I was showing that there are people down here with leaf blowers. I haven't really seen anybody with a shield yet, but we haven't really
I've
gone
seen
in.
a couple.
There's a whole section over here. It looks like all helmeted people that are. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's right in between that tree.
At this point in my life, I wouldn't come down here and go front lines without a helmet, just because I've seen people with chunks out of their helmet taken, and I wouldn't go deep into that crowd when they're throwing and when they're gassing without a helmet. I don't necessarily think, from my point of view, that means that you're there to, create violence.
And this guy that just showed up has an umbrella strapped in his backpack. So, yeah, I know we've all seen the umbrella, and there are actually tactics that are used down here. What time would you say that things normally go violent if they're going to go violent?
I've seen things go violent at 9 p.m. I've seen things stay quiet until 2. It really depends on the tactics that are being used by the police. That car you just heard is most likely Proud Boys.
Proud Boys?
Yeah, so those are really anti-right people, very much Trump followers, and they come down here to kind of incite problems. They drive by in trucks, they drive by with big Trump flags on the back. They, before the feds were here, were a big part of the kidnappings that were happening in Portland.
So other civilians were taking people?
Yes.
Wow.
And they would dress up. They would dress up in army gear and come down here, and they would put people into their trucks. That was one of the biggest worries about that protesters had, aside from the police at that point in time.
So those are all those guys, the people that just walked by. Those are medics. Yep. Just so you know. There's a lot of people down here for a lot of different reasons, is what it looks like. Lipstick, what do you think? What do you think the percentage of those that are actually here to incite violence versus as well as the percentage of protesters that are cheering them on, and then the percentage of people that are neutral or just down here to help?
I'd say it's about 5% people actually here to incite violence. I'd say it's about 40% of people that 60% of people that when they see violence are not going to stop it. And that are just here to, peace policing has become a really big thing in this entire crowd. Nobody wants a peace police. We don't need more cops down here telling people how to protest. I've tried to do it myself, and I've tried to tell people not to do certain things, and I realize it's not my place. And, people are going to do down here what they're going to do, and that's not why I'm here, is to police more people. But I think the amount of people that come down here to actually cause violence is very low. The amount of people that ignore the violence or are down here and don't say anything is much, much higher.
So one of the things I've talked about before, guys, is the fact that once the mob mentality is instigated, right? Like, it takes very, very few people to get people riled up to the point where things get really out of control. And we've seen this in riots all across our country. And an instigator could show up and do something that would get 10 other people excited enough to jump in and do it. Like, breaking out the windows of a Target. Next thing you know, everybody's looting, right? Like, well, it only took one person to break that window. So, and from what I'm seeing right now, I can't say anything different other than, her percentages seem about right. There might be, 5, maybe even 10% of the people here that would be likely to help instigate the violence. But the rest, I don't see a whole lot of people here that would try to stop it. They would be cheering it on and stuff like that. But there's also a huge group of people, guys, that, like, I don't know, I'm going to scan over here a little bit. that kind of stand back out of the way. And I think the vast majority of the people you see back here with the water bottles and all the other stuff, they're here to help people when it gets ugly. That's what I'm. That's kind of what it looks like, anyways. Do they usually start to become violent after a counter protest or anti? Um, blah, blah. So yeah, she talked about that, Sydney, a little bit ago. Um, so it typically there doesn't have to be an anti-protest or any instigation from the police or the feds. If the feds are outside behind the fence, it starts to ramp up, right? And then the chanting starts, and they start to yell back and forth, and then obviously it just escalates from there, just with their presence. Is what it is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say that no one's throwing fireworks until they're throwing gas. Um, until someone's shot with a rubber bullet, until the gas is released. Usually it's not happening. I have seen it happen a couple times since I've been out where I think people do get to the point where the feds have backed off for so long that they want to instigate things. And so they will throw fireworks and they will do that. But I've only seen that about 3 nights I've been out.
And then the other point I want to go back to for you, Sydney, is a lot of the violence early on before the feds was here, that the police were far worse than the feds have been since they've been here, according to Lipstick. Um,
The feds' gas is more intense. That is the one thing I'd say. The gas that they're allowed to use, I don't believe it's CS gas, which is what the local officials are allowed to use. I do believe it's more intense. I've had more intense reactions to that gas. They also throw more of it, which could be part of it. But it's the same thing. They're gassing and they're shooting pepper and rubber bullets, and that's what the cops were doing far before the feds showed up.
Now, were there instigations? Were the instigations from the police, or were they from the protesters, or was it a combination?
From the police to begin with. Since about July 2nd, when the firework, the whole firework thing has really amped it up, and that's about when the feds showed up. So since the fireworks, you can see the instigation from the protesters. When I was here a month and a half ago, no one in the crowd was doing anything, but they would throw like a water bottle over the fence, and then we'd all get gassed. Which, in my opinion, is not a fair trade. Just because some dumbass does that doesn't mean the entire crowd needs to be gassed. And a lot of the protesters would then grab whoever threw something over the fence and escort them out. Whereas now, the violence is kind of ignored. People who are throwing things over the fence, people who are throwing fireworks, they don't get any type of repercussion from the crowd. Whereas before, with the cops, when someone would throw a water bottle over, they would be escorted out of the crowd.
So I've seen a few comments come by, guys, that you guys aren't agreeing with the things that Lipstick is saying, and that is your right to do that, and that's okay. But keep in mind that this is her perception of everything that's going on down here, and she's been down here every single day. So and she's been kind enough to escort me in here and to walk me around and point out the differences. And whether you agree or not, I've talked with her a lot outside of this live, and she is fair in her assessment. She puts blame on both sides, and so take that for what it's worth. Is all I'm going to say. Um, so I'm seeing people with gas masks. So now the crowd is thinning even more. People are leaving. Now I don't know if that means things are not going to kick off tonight, or if they are, or people are getting out because they're gonna. Um, so what is your opinion of them trying to set the courthouse on fire?
I would never do it. I'm not for the violence. I have had opportunities to be a part of it, and I'm not a part of it. I'm down here to support Black Lives Matter and support the idea behind the fact that there's been injustices done to Black people in our country for years and years and centuries, and that's why I'm here. I'm not going to throw fireworks at the fucking Justice Center. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm not going to physically harm anyone. I'm here to help people, and though I'm not going to tell people how to protest, that doesn't mean I'm going to be involved in it.
It's a very fair way to look at it. I got to be honest. Like, you know, not, and honestly, I agree with it. Like, I don't agree with rioting at all. Like, the violence is ridiculous, and you know, I understand why the police and the feds use tear gas, because it disperses the crowd. And even if it's one asshole that throws a frozen bottle of water over the fence at them, you know, I can see how that provocation now leads to a whole bunch of people getting gas that had nothing to do with it. And that doesn't seem fair, but at the same time, the moment it starts to go violent, they're probably thinking time to disperse the crowd, which is exactly what tear gas does. So unfortunately, it's kind of like stuck in a rock in a hard place. In some aspects, it makes perfect sense, and in others, it sure as hell isn't fair to the ones that didn't throw the bottle, because you know that gas doesn't care who you are. You know, same with a rubber bullet bouncing around. You know.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that I've never been directly targeted by any of the bullets, any of the gas. I've never been one that's caused any type of reaction from them, and I've still been brutalicized. Okay, so there's a firework. They just threw a firework over.
Okay, so that was the first firework just got thrown over the fence, guys. And it's burning. Something's burning over there. There's something flickering on the other side of that. You can almost feel it, can't
So
you?
that's
Like,
the LRAD. If you want to move closer, I think it might be beneficial.
all right, let's go in. Let's get a little closer.
We'll be fine. I've been down here a lot. If at any point I feel like it might get intense, I'll tell you.
So guys, I'm gonna drop my camera to my chest and try to hold it in a way that doesn't make it so obvious, just so you know. So sorry for the bouncy camera, but that's where it's gotta be. Let's go up here down this side and show them the fence. So this is the fence, guys, that's around the courthouse, and you can see there's a lot of graffiti on the front pillars of the courthouse. Um, and this is the fence where the feds come out and engage with the crowd, and you know, kind of the tipping point of everything. So you can hear a lot of people laughing, having a good time over on this side. We're gonna head back over the other way. I just wanted you guys to see that. Lots of people recording. There's definitely something burning down here. There's a lot of smoke.
Sage.
Is it sage? Huh. Apparently they're burning sage down here. So we have two protesters with microphones arguing with each other.
So I've never seen this.
This is new, even for lipstick, guys. Is that a white woman with the
No. It's a black woman right here.
Black Lives Matter!
apparently we're on. I just heard that, Kevin. So guys, it sounds like these two ladies are arguing the validity of Black Lives Matter from one person's perspective and another.
I'm saying blue lives matter.
Apparently, one of the women had has a megaphone and was actually saying that blue lives matter in the middle of this. There's another firework that just went off over in the background, guys. Just saw my first laser shined at people.
I think this is going to be a quiet night as far as the feds go.
I got to be honest, guys. I really wish I could have a conversation with both of these ladies. You know, we talk every day about how to communicate with each other, and yelling over each other isn't how we effectively communicate. The floodlights just come on?
No. Oh, yep.
So guys, the floodlights on the courthouse just came on. Everybody's now looking around. Some people are straight getting out of here. Is that typically an indication that they're coming out?
No. They might stay in all night. I mean, it really is so much tactical shit that they'll do this kind of shit to discourage people from throwing fireworks.
Oh, Jackie, it wouldn't be detrimental to my health.
You'll be fine.
It's just a conversation, right? This is what we do. This is what we do every day, guys. We have conversations. And these two are struggling to have an understanding conversation with each other. And I can't help but wish that I could have a conversation with them and help them with that.
I've never seen counter protesters for Blue Lives Matter actually show up to something like this.
So I'll tell you guys something in a second.
Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
So what we're seeing, guys, is a Blue Lives Matter counter protest that literally came right into the middle of this crowd.
Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
So people are moving in with shields, a lot more tactical looking gear on. They're now moving in a lot closer into the center of this group. I don't know if they're traveling through, but they're definitely here. I wish she had a louder loudspeaker so we could actually hear the point she's trying to make. Jackie, I'll be fine. Billy Joe, she saw your comment and she will.
No good cops in a racist system. 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 No good cops in a racist system.
So umbrellas are coming out.
No good cops in a racist system. No good cops in a racist system. No good cops in a racist system. No good cops in a racist system.
No, we do not see any police or any federal agents at all at this point.
No good cops in a racist system. 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 No good cops in a racist system.
Let's move. You want to move over here?
No good cops in a racist system.
Here, this will help you guys. I'll move closer.
I'm out here because the Black Lives Matter movement has been hijacked by if y'all have seen the video that I went viral with, it got over 700,000 views. Hijacked by what the fuck is my file? She's not. Right, I'm gonna just keep it all the way real. It's not so confidential. Right. So I'm gonna tell you. I had a white lady that claimed that she was Black Lives Matter movement, but she talked about my gap and how ugly my teeth was and how fucked up it was. If you go live, if you go on any type of YouTube channel right now, you'll see I was cussing her out because she talked about my mom. And she said that I got gap teeth, my teeth was fucked up. But anybody knows that my teeth is from my culture. That's the richness of me being so black. My gums is purple because I got more melanin and pigment in my gums than somebody with pink. It don't mean I got gingivitis. My goodness, love on the rest. Does that make sense? So you see how I was just willing to bite the bullet and have a moment to dialect with her back and forth to give her the right to say what she can say. And she wanted to steal null and void the same way. What did she say? So again, that's a racist movement. And continue to say, fuck the police. Let me tell you something. I have a friend who's an officer, right? And this may be too much information to share. But he asked me to pray for him. And I said, pray for you. Damn, it's that bad. You're the highest party in the name. You want me to pray for you? When I found out and I realized he had burn holes in his uniform from fireworks. That he couldn't come and teach my kids and go hang out and teach them how to kick butt and all that. Because he was so spiritually drained from fighting out here every single night. A part of my heart said, if the shoe was on the other foot, at that point, how can I there and sit there and judge somebody when I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be looked at by the skin color, right? I don't want to be judged by the way I talk or the way I walk or my big booty and my big breasts and my little sassy ass attitude, right? So how can I sit here and judge somebody for deciding to grow up and pick the career that they chose? So when I say this, I'm going to tell you this, and I hope I'm educating you guys and I'm shining some light. Because God convicted me as to why I'm down here right now. I could be doing 1,000,001 things, and down here is not one of them. Sweating. Okay. Coronavirus is on a rampage, and trust me, this is why the numbers are going up. And then when we get martial law, right, and they tell all of our punk asses to stay inside and can't nobody go nowhere and we're on lockdown, thank yourself. Because the first ones they're going for are the women. They're going for the black people. The people that are transits and homeless, they're putting them in FEMA camps and locking them away and then they're stacked. I'm going to keep it 1,000. So thank yourself for the outcome of that. So you have the chance to make a decision tonight, tomorrow, and the next night. Now look, I want to come out here and have a barbecue. If my life and another black person's life really matter, then y'all gonna join me. I'm starting my own nonprofit organization, and I'm so happy because I'm doing it for all my praise to God and some supporters. But I'm gonna tell you this, right? I just put up there on Facebook. It's called Helping Hands. It's one of the little things that we're doing. I'm gonna have people come out here for 3 days straight. We're gonna meet up. We're gonna cook. We're gonna share some food. Because if you're black, we know food we there. Chicken, watermelon, Kool-Aid. I like the organic lemonade. In case y'all don't know. Okay, I noticed that organic sour cream lasts a whole lot longer than that processed crap that I made. So if y'all honestly want to be a part of the solution and not the problem, I'm gonna tell you something. Those police officers, one of the gals asked me, why is it that you guys are fighting the feds and not the police? You know why? Because they don't want to do what other officers have done. And that's to blow somebody's brain. You're fucking human. You understand me? Somebody asked me, why is it that you guys are fighting the feds and not the police? Because they're tired. They can only take so much. That's like somebody's poking me and poking me and poking me and poking me. There's only 1 second before I drop kick that punk ass, before I just snap. You understand what I'm saying? I feel like my whole contrast. My pants, like I got on no underclothes. I felt like for some reason. But I say that because that's the truth. So somebody got to talk to me when the police get tired. Who takes over?
Huh?
That's what I'm talking about. The people with cameras. That's what she's talking
My
about.
son was just down here 2 nights ago. And I was terrified that I couldn't depend on an officer to be there because they couldn't come down here and defend my baby because y'all was out here on a straight rampage. My baby ended up going to jail. He was fighting with a pistol on him at 14 years old. You know what it's like to make some decisions in life that are so serious you can't turn back from, so you think in your mind that all you have to do is keep going the opposite direction. You don't want to change. You don't want to turn around. You don't want to do nothing right. Because
Ask
why?
him if I can get a shot at his armband.
I'm going to say this again. I'm a felon. Okay? I've been arrested before. I can tell you some stories about being incarcerated.
Hey guys, I want you to see this.
So when you say
What's it say here?
that you don't act well, I can understand when that bias is.
So this is your blood type?
But I can't support you.
I mean, yeah, it's all our blood types.
Thanks,
But I
brother.
need somebody to help protect me and my kids. I can't go wake up one of y'all in the middle of the night and say, hey, come on. My son just pulled a gun out of where he just ran away. Or his daddy ain't, you know what I'm saying? I can't do it. You can't sit here and tell me I can't.
So there's
It's
people
gonna
behind me
happen.
that are starting to yell about
Do you
people
not
with
know
cameras.
that the police, women and men, they got spouses at home. They can't come out here and stand with y'all when Black Lives Matter because y'all too busy hating their motherfucking husbands. Do you know how that feels? Martin Luther King said to not be judged by the content of your, not by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character. That means when somebody's out here acting an ignorant different. Insanity is doing the same thing.
Time to go. Time to go. Is that the LRAD?
No, that's a car that might drive through. That's what I'm talking about with scare tactics. They try to make everybody think they're going to drive right through the crowd, which people have done in Seattle.
Yeah, saw that.
This is people heading that way. If you want to, we can.
Let's go talk about what we just saw. Someplace where we can actually. Go back? Okay. All right, guys, we're going to step back out for a little bit and have a conversation about what we just watched. Share our thoughts. There. All right, guys, hold on a second. So, apparently, this is the first. It's the first for Lipstick. In the months of coming down here, she hasn't seen this one other time before. So, how do you feel about what you just watched?
I mean, I think that I've known about the distinction coming from people of color for the past week or so. And I think it's interesting that the person who was speaking was black. I think that this is when people are starting to divide, like I talked about earlier with the division between the Rose City Justice and this group, which includes Don't Shoot PDX and the Youth Liberation. I think it's bound to happen. I haven't been down in the past 3 days, and I kind of was curious if that was going to start happening. I do think that I haven't seen someone ballsy enough to go into the crowd with a loudspeaker and actually do it, because usually they're run out by the protesters. But I do think that a lot of people come down here pretty amped up, adrenaline rushing, and the feds have been nowhere to be seen tonight. So I think that's where the adrenaline is heading.
The age group I've seen down here, guys, is very, very varied. Like, there's a wide age group down here from what looks to be like people in their early 20s all the way up to a lot older than that, you know. So there's quite an age group here. So I don't know how much you guys heard while we were in the group, but basically what we just saw was a counter. Like it was really just one woman. I think she had some people there that were helping her, like keep people away from her and stuff like that.
I think that was someone separate.
Was that someone separate?
People down here are very vigilant about keeping black people safe, and I think that
So if a white person had tried to express her opinion,
I think it would have been different.
it would have been different. Okay. Um, it's interesting. So I don't know how much you guys could hear down there. Basically, the point that she was making is that
No.
so somebody just asked if she has seen any protesters attack a black person for speaking out against BLM, and the answer is no. She has not seen that. Um, it's interesting though that like the point that the woman speaking was trying to make was that all lives matter or blue lives matter, and I think eventually she might have said all lives matter, and that's what fired up somebody else with a loudspeaker to start the Black Lives Matter chants. And these were two black women who had very differing opinions, obviously. Um, so Sydney wants to know if the media has portrayed what's happening in Portland correctly.
I would say no, having been down here. I think liberal media has taken it out of control, and I also think right-wing media has taken it out of control and tried to show both sides. There's been fucked up shit on both sides in my viewing of everything. No, I don't think it's been portrayed correctly whatsoever.
So interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this or not, one of the things that I've said many times is, when people tend to disagree from right to left, I often like to point out the fact that maybe you're both right based on the information you have.
Totally.
Um, and this is somebody who's down here protesting all the time, and she's saying that the left media gets it wrong and the right media gets it wrong. So again, the truth is found somewhere in the middle, you guys. It's not exactly what you're seeing on Fox, and it's not exactly what you're seeing on CNN. The source of information that you choose to get information from dictates a lot of the time your perspective of the things that you're looking at. And that's not always the correct perspective as far as the actual truth goes. So if the truth of the situation matters to you, you have to look further. And that's what we're trying to showcase today. Um, so the reason we moved out real quick is there's a lot of fear in this group about I'm sure you guys heard that really loud noise. That was a car exhaust that was blowing up. So there's a car that was revving their engine like they were going to start plowing through the crowd. So the crowd started making room. It's a scare tactic that they've used before.
Proud Boys.
So that's the Proud Boys group that Lipstick was talking about earlier. Um, so they tend to fly or drive, they tend to have like Trump flags and stuff like that flying from their cars, and they make a lot of noise, and they try to instigate a reaction out of the crowd. So, but back to what we saw in there, you guys. It's interesting because a lot of the crowd, it looked like they were confused, right? They didn't know what to do, and when the one woman who was talking Blue Lives Matter was making a point, you could hear people behind me like having an opinion on it and saying something to counter it, but nobody actually would speak up outside of the one woman with the loudspeaker, right? Like it's like they were confused on what to think, like where did this opinion come from, because that's obviously not the opinion that they see down here the most. So um, it's just it's an interesting thing to see. So that car is here again. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. It's coming from over that way. Everything's backwards. It's weird. Um, but yeah, so that was interesting. And the floodlights did come on. Still no feds. Um, it's interesting that the protesters themselves are starting to protest against each other. There was also the woman standing behind me that, well, as we walked closer to the group, there was somebody that was telling me to shut my camera off. Obviously, I listen really well. So, but there was a woman behind me also complaining about all the people that had their phones out and recording all of it. Um, and I don't understand why. I got to be real. I think that people deserve to see what's really going on. Um, this is America, and we're all free, right? Like that's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be equal and free among in this country, and that's what we need to be. So the only way that we're all going to come to an understanding of what's really happening is if we come together and watch and see it for ourselves. And people like Lipstick take the chance to show her perspective and to share what she sees with a whole bunch of us that don't even know each other or that she doesn't even know. So um, I know it's been said 100 times. Why am I a rebel? Oh wait, I remember now. Never mind, Renee. I got it.
I'm curious as I didn't get a chance to see what people were critiquing about what I was saying.
I did not see what I think that I don't know, honestly. I don't. Some Lipstick is curious about what you guys, those of you that were critiquing her, what she was saying, what you guys didn't like, I guess. Um, uh,
Yeah, that's true.
Marilyn, that's a good point. Lipstick agrees with you, and she says that that's true. That individuals don't want their employers to see, depending on their occupation. There's definitely some of that, but I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but you can't really see very many faces down here. Everybody's pretty well covered up. I mean, there are some people walking around down here without a mask or anything like that. Um, and I think that's absolutely a poor decision considering we are still in the middle of a pandemic. But, um, so don't look.
That's fine.
Mike's saying, don't worry, they're just haters calling her a liar.
That's fine. I'm honestly,
I,
if people want to remain ignorant, I've been down here, and if people don't believe me, it's not my place to convince anybody of anything. It's my truth and not theirs.
that's a good way to look at it. And you know what, like this, I know Mike has said this several times, and a whole bunch of other people have said this throughout this comment thread, um, that they really appreciate you doing this and taking the time to do this and bringing me down here. Like, um, it would have been a lot more difficult for me to come down here and go live, you guys, without her here with me. So, um, you know, having somebody that's experienced it not just once but a whole lot to come down here and show me what she has seen and show me for herself, like let me see it through her eyes, like that's the amazing thing about what she was willing to do. And prior to 3 days ago, we had never spoken. I'd never known her before. I don't know her. We've never met before. We don't have some crazy connection or anything like that. Like, we weren't friends. I think we're gonna be friends though. um, I like her perspective, and I like that she's brave. You guys, this girl here is as courageous as they come, to come down here and to put herself in jeopardy like this. Like, that is something that, whether you agree with her opinions or not, you have to respect her for that. Um,
So yeah, I'll reply to that person.
Go ahead.
Whoever said that I didn't tell what really happened. Um, you know, I'm one person. I see through out of two eyes, and I saw what I saw, and I'm explaining what I've seen. The most I've seen is people destroying a fence that the feds set up. As far as blinding officers go, there's a lot of cameras around this area, and in the same way that people don't want their identity shown on someone's phone camera, they don't want to be shown on a federal camera, especially, and so a lot of the lasers came out to blind out the cameras. I know that there were some DHS officers that were, affected from the lasers, but I haven't heard of any protesters specifically aiming for anyone's eyes. It usually is at the cameras, and I don't expect anyone to completely,
So I got to stop you there real quick. So this guy right here, Victor, he's actually a police officer in New Jersey, and I've talked with him many times. He has a really great perspective. So Victor, yes, we're being as safe as we can be, um, but I want to give you a shout out right now. He's one of the few police officers that's always been willing to just open up and talk and tell me his perspective, and I've learned a lot from him, just like I'm learning from you, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Victor, that's something I want you to know and everybody here to know, that like I respect the hell out of you for that. Like, because a lot of officers are afraid to talk, especially somebody who speaks on a public platform like this. So thanks for being here tonight and watching with us. I know you saw something else, right?
John Lee, they are breaking the law just for being out past curfew. I think that's the point of a protest. It's to cause some kind of civil unrest and, to make a point. And I think as many people that want to go out in the street during the day and have these peaceful protests, it really doesn't do much. I think you do have to cause some kind of, you have to wake some people up in order to get what you want. The green lasers are the ones purposely shined in officers' eyes. It's hard for me to not say that's bullshit, because most lasers that are sold here that are as big and as bright as the ones that are being shined are green. But I think that, it is, everyone is through everyone's eyes, and I'm just explaining what I've seen. And I have been out here on the streets of Portland, and I try to tell everyone, and I even told Patrick, you don't know until you see it. And
So I'd like to add, the only lasers I've seen are green, and I've only seen two of them. And using a powerful laser like that to blind cameras around the park actually does make a lot of sense. Now, I do know that 3 officers have been permanently blinded, and that's a lifelong something that they're going to have to live with, and it's horrible. And it never should have happened. And I can't say that it wasn't done on purpose. I can't say that it was done on purpose because I didn't see it. I wasn't here, right? It makes sense to me both ways, actually. This isn't a single incident, so it does kind of lead to the fact that maybe it was done on purpose. But keep in mind that those are the actions of a single person, or maybe 3 single people. And as you guys have seen tonight, there's probably 3,000 at the peak. Maybe how many people would you think was here? There's definitely 1,000
right
people
now,
here.
1,000.
Yeah.
And I would have to say, are the businesses in the area being vandalized? No, not lately. In the past, when all of this started, yes. The weekend after George Floyd was murdered, yes. Extreme looting, extreme vandalization. At this point, the most vandalization I've seen is graffiti.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of graffiti, but as far as breaking windows, as far as looting businesses, no. I would say no, I have not seen a single instance of that in the past month and a half. I saw that.
Thanks, John Lee. She got it.
The agenda of the protesters, I did state it earlier. I don't know if you were on. I think a lot of people are fed up with the way that Black people have been treated by law enforcement. In Portland specifically, we have 4 wants, and that is to defund the police by 50%, release all protesters, have Ted Wheeler resign. What was the third one?
All the protesters removed from jail.
There was another one.
Defund the police by 50% and reallocate funds. Ted Wheeler resigns. The protesters removed from jail, and what was
There's one more. I know.
There was one more. There was 4.
There's one more, but there is a.
Yes, there was a jewelry store looted a few weeks ago, but guys, I walked all the way into this place, and I can tell you that outside of this 2 blocks, it's just like downtown Portland always is. I've been in the city many times before. Outside of these 2 blocks, where this is where you see all the graffiti, this is where you see all the people, and literally it's the courthouse right across from me that I'm sitting right in front of, and it's over that way, the Justice Center, where the police officers hang out. So like that's literally that's all that it is. It is not all of downtown Portland. These crowds aren't going and breaking windows out in businesses and things like that. In fact, right now it really looks like the crowd has decided that tonight is done. Kind of.
So this is what will happen, and then people will leave, and then they will come out.
That was the 4th. Mike says that was the 4th. I wonder
The
what he's talking
4th
about.
was really intense. I actually couldn't stay down here past 10 o'clock. The 4th was way out of line on the protesters' end to the point where I left. There was too many fireworks being lit at the Justice Center. That was actually the night I was here by myself. And I had to leave because it was too intense. Just with the fireworks, it was too much. And I do agree that there's been times of looting and you know, people have done some fucked up shit. But as much as all the police with, you know, being permanently blind, I have permanent damage. I have friends that have permanent damage. And it is just as back and forth, you know, just as many times that you can blame, you know, police feeling things. People are viewing the police as an entire unit, and the police have murdered more innocent black people. Innocent in whatever way you want to view it. Did they deserve to die is really where it comes to.
Mike just said, no, oh no, the 4th, demanding the feds were out.
Yes, good job.
Good job, Mike. Thank you. And I don't know if you guys caught that or not, right? What she just said was that the 4th of July, the protesters were so out of line that she left. Okay? So, yes, there is fault on both sides. Okay? But yet still she makes the choice to come down here almost every single night. She would have been down here the last few nights, except she actually twisted her ankle really bad, so she's down here hobbling around to help me, which is kind of why we keep stepping back and sitting down, giving her foot a break. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing this. A lot more people are leaving now.
No.
Who? Do you believe that? Lewis asked, "Do you believe that there are things that happen that you are unaware of so far as riding?"
No, I think I've been on the front lines almost every single night, and I've seen pretty much everything there is to see as far as rioters doing things. Also, innocent officers who've been killed. There's not been a single officer that's been killed in Portland, Oregon.
At least not here. So that doesn't mean officers haven't been hurt.
I'm not saying that, but here there's been 0 officers that have been killed.
I wanted to ask you earlier, Marilyn. Good night. Thank you for staying up with us so late. I appreciate you. I wanted to ask you about the not just the fireworks, but the ones that are set with nails and that are blowing holes in concrete.
That's new.
And it's really more of an IUD. An improvised explosive device, kind of like what we'd see elsewhere. Like, have you seen those?
I have not. That was actually info to me when you said that. Sorry, I'm allergic to sage, and everyone burns it down here. No, I haven't seen that. Most of the fireworks I've seen let off have actually been handheld, and they light them and throw them. So I haven't seen ones that have nails in them, because I think they would have to be ground fireworks for them to have nails in them.
Or completely improvised.
Yeah.
So as some people leave, more people show up. I guess that's kind of the way things go down here, huh?
Yep. And then Janet, seeing your comment, I think a lot of people, especially on the right side, really like seeing that. But down here, that is like against the law. And there are some laws that have weirdly been created in the protest world, and peace policing is one of them. And a lot of people down here have the idea that it doesn't do much to tell people how to protest. So as much as that has happened before, it's not as big of a thing, and a lot of the people who do that are pushed out.
So what they'll do if somebody breaks the unwritten rules of the protest is they will just simply surround them and escort them of the out of the protest area and not let them back in. They actually have people that is literally what they're looking for. Um, sorry, this freaking mask keeps pushing my beard into my mouth. It's kind of weird.
The defunding, I think more funding for training is not going to be allocated in the correct way, and I think that's what a lot of people think out here. So I think taking money and putting it towards mental health professionals to deal with mental health calls and that type of thing is more what people mean when they say defunding. Instead of putting more money in to train police officers right, it's making it so police officers can have their level of training, but instead of having to deal with mental health things and psychological issues, domestic violence, which they are not trained to do, allocating those responsibilities to someone who is trained in those fields.
But would you agree that domestic violence situations can get out of hand very, very quickly to where a police officer would be involved or
Yes,
would need to be involved?
I do. I have been a victim of domestic abuse in a way that it was not going to get violent, and I think the cops showing up did escalate things in a way where if a trained psychologist had showed up or someone trained in domestic abuse, it would have been, but that's also just my perspective having been a part of domestic abuse.
But asking people to show up into a situation with so many unknowns,
True.
Is very, very dangerous. I mean, it's no different than me walking into this protest tonight. There's so many unknowns, right?
But even us having this conversation about police reform overall, this movement is about police reform where it comes to black people. And black people have been targeted in a way where if a black person is having a schizophrenic, breakdown, they're going to be treated differently as shown by statistics in the amount of deaths and the amount of brutality than a white person dealing with a schizophrenic breakdown.
Sure. I'm not going to argue with that. That's probably accurate. But I think that, one of the reasons that the police get tasked with so many different, they have to wear a lot of different hats. And, somebody just said that they are trained in how to de-escalate that situation. And for some police departments, that's probably true. But for others, it's not. You guys, like, where police are ran by individual states, so there's no federal guidelines to how police officers are trained because states govern themselves. So every state has a different guideline for how police are trained. They have different rules of engagement. They have different things that they are taught to do. So maybe in your police department, they are trained in de-escalation. I know Victor does some specific de-escalation training, but I also know that is not necessarily the same from state to state. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where, my position. We've talked about, Lipstick and I've talked about this before, and I've shared my thoughts on police training with all of you guys before too. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and move on to the next subject.
Unfortunately, someone said police officers target and kill black people that are just driving around. The rest of their post. I'd say that. I think that this all stems back to systematic racism. And I think if you haven't done research into redlining, I would. It doesn't affect me as much, or, I'm not black, so I'm really can't speak much on this, but this doesn't affect, you should look into redlining, look into how black people have less of a chance. Their public schools are not funded the same way as white people. They are not allowed loans the same way as white people. All of these things contribute into a way a lot of people speak on black violence. And, black on black violence should not even be a term that we use, in my opinion. We don't speak on white violence. And it is a term that's used to discriminate black people. And what we really need to be looking at is the why. Why is there more quote unquote black on black violence? Why are there people who, need to join gangs, need to be drug dealers in order to make a living for themselves? And then look at the why of that. And it's not because of a choice, it's because that's what they are born into. Redlining is crazy. Redlining is absolutely insane, and I would definitely look into that if you don't know much about it.
And guys, just to clarify, well, somebody had said something that I was trying to keep in my head, and then the comments moved fast. So, Sydney's talking about affordable housing. Um, would it help prevent crime? Um, yes, and probably no. Um, I personally believe that the solutions to these issues, guys, are far. We're not going to get a one, all we got to do is this and the problem will be solved. These problems are far more complicated. Lipstick here just brought up redlining, and things like that, systemic racism. And there are issues with that in this country that a lot of people don't know about and don't want to know about. So, but the answer isn't going to be found in one magic thing. Like there isn't like one solution that would actually bring the change that we're all looking to see. It's far more complicated than just that. Sadly, it is true. It isn't discrimination born into.
I don't believe it's a choice. If you're born in the ghetto of Chicago, that wasn't your choice. If you have to sell drugs, if you have to join a gang and be a part of that lifestyle in order to feed your family, no one would choose that, and that's human nature. No one in their right mind would ever choose to be a part of any type of crime or to be possibly put in the justice system for the rest of their lives in order to survive by choice.
Sydney, that's a great point. Sydney just said crime rates are also socioeconomical status, not race. So, helping people get out of that cycle of poverty would overall help crime rates.
Agreed.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. But how is the question, right? Like, where do we make the changes, right? Like, I've been to Chicago. I've walked through, or I've seen Gary, Indiana, and I've got to see those things firsthand. And as somebody that grew up in a Western state and having never seen those kind of things, the problem is it's nowhere near that simple. And Renee, to your point that to get out,
It's not always
the
that
vast
easy.
majority, like, do you guys realize the vast majority of us stay within a few miles of where we were born? Like that's the crazy thing. Um, so getting out is not always that easy. So there's a lot of and yes, Renee, fatherless absence and mothers not. Yes, those things absolutely are a factor. But you have to start asking yourself the bigger question: why? Why is that happening in one community so much more than in another? And if you dig into that, you're going to find some things that are rather disturbing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, even speaking to Renee, I'm curious to know if I'm allowed to ask what race you are. And I think this starts to dig into white privilege and privilege of any kind. And a lot of black people don't have privilege. And as much as capitalism, preaching that, you gotta pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get your way out, it's not always that easy. And, if your parents have done it, your friends are doing it, you are a product of your environment. And changing that environment that people are forced into is kind of what I'm saying would be the change.
Billy Joe just brought up the Great Society, which is a bill that was passed in the I believe in 1964. I might be wrong about that. It might have been 66 '66. I'm not entirely sure. Middle late '60s, somewhere in that range. The Great Society is a bill that um, I would encourage all of you to look into the ramifications of that bill, and it has been implemented since, like I said, the '60s. So um, it has a big part to do with the questions you guys were asking earlier about, you know, redlining and the fatherless rate in the homes in the black communities and all of those kind of things. Um, it's So as far as privilege goes, I want to add something to this, guys. Privilege. Um, I hate that term. First of all, I absolutely hate that term because whoever came up with it could have picked a much better word to describe it. Because the moment you use the word privilege, all of a sudden it's like a personal attack, right? But it's not meant to be a personal attack. It speaks to the fact that when you're a person of color in this country, you have other things that you have to deal with that white people don't, right? It doesn't mean that, you know, and that's literally all it is. But, there's also the fact that privilege is, in my opinion, mostly economical, right? It has a lot to do with the situation you're born into, regardless of your color. Color does matter, yes. It does factor into privilege, yes. But economics, I believe, factor in a whole lot more. So, um, yes, Renee, it is a domino effect. There's so many different sides to what brought us to this point. I mean, it is 2020 right now, and we're still fighting some of the same issues. But the issues have changed, and I don't want you guys to be discouraged either. Like, a lot of progress has been made for us before this generation ever got here, and now, but the work isn't done yet. A good friend once told me that you don't stop and congratulate yourself halfway through the race, right? Um, and that stuck with me, and it's something I've always remembered. And honestly, yes, we have come a long way, but we still have work to do. Nietzsche Thomas, not everyone sees color. I see brothers and sisters who are Americans. I love that sentiment, but obviously we all see color, right? Um, we do, but I look at the diversity of America, and I just see Americans, right? Like, that's what we all are. What was that? Go ahead.
I just think saying that you don't see color is a dangerous thing to say, because we should see color and we should see how different people of different colors are treated. And as much as we want to say, well, I would hire him, I don't see color, I don't really see that he's black, we should be seeing the differences and appreciating the cultures and appreciating the backgrounds of where people came and understanding. And not seeing color, it seems like a very good notion, but at the same time, it's dangerous to say that. And it's dangerous to be saying, well, I don't see it, because then we're living in an ignorance is bliss type situation where we're not seeing the differences that of the way people are treated blatantly based on their skin color.
Yes, we should appreciate culture and appreciate our differences, guys. Like, look, America's been called the melting pot of the world for a very long time. This is part of who we are, right? Um, and we've done some amazing. Like, look, I know a lot of people tend to get held up on the fact that, you know women should have never had to wait for the right to vote, and I agree with you. The Declaration of Independence was a promise, right? It was a promise to everyone. And Martin Luther King once said during one of his great speeches that they were there, or one of his marches, that they were there to collect on that promise, right? That all men were created equal, and it's that all men and women were created equal, and that is an amazing promise that we need to uphold, and we need to make sure that it is true for all Americans. And I think this generation is the one to do it. I think we're at that point in our society that we could do it. And I know a lot of people look at these protests. Well, I'm going to say a lot of people look at these protests. A lot of people look at these riots from a very negative position. But when you look at these protests, just like when we talk about, how change is difficult, and we talk about keeping a positive mindset and things like that, and it changes the outcome. Look, change is difficult. It always is. But change is an opportunity to grow. And what we're seeing here gives us an opportunity to grow. We might not know what's going to come out of it, but we shouldn't assume that just because things are changing, it's going to be negative. Yeah, somebody just said I wish more people would do DNA ancestry research. Yeah, that would be interesting because I think we're all a little mixed up now at this point, and that's probably the best way for us all to be, anyways. So, all right, was there any other big questions you saw that you wanted to talk about?
New comments?
Yes, I would agree that being raised in a two-parent home is a big privilege. Especially, I mean, that's backed by statistical data. So,
I think being colorblind leads to a generation where we are ignoring. If we're all colorblind, then we're not noticing how many more black people are being killed by police and being, treated poorly than we are other colors, if that's what you want to say. And we do need to, someone earlier said we need to focus on culture, not color. But as much as you want to not believe it necessarily, culture does come from color and culture does come from region, and it is important. And I think it should be something that's celebrated. And it shouldn't create a divide. We're all human, but it should be something that is celebrated in the way that culture does come from color and does come from region. And we should be able to view that statistically, more black people are faced with police brutality than there are white people. And that should be something that we look at. And if we're colorblind, we're not going to be able to see that.
what do you think of Lewis's question?
Do you feel that they're trying to not hate? Yeah, I think that it's reached that point a little bit, and I do think that
So Lewis asked if we thought that this hate, trying to combat hate, is in these protests. Hate versus hate. So go ahead. Sorry.
I do think that in the beginning it was not like that. It was very much the type of pictures that you see where people put flowers into guns in the 60s, and I think that was the mentality everyone here had. And I think as it's grown and as people have been gassed and shot and watched people they love been gassed and shot and seen no real reach out, at least in Portland, I'm speaking from a Portland point of view, from our leaders and our politicians here, people have become angry. And I do think people have reached the point where they are trying to fight hate with hate at this point, because fighting peace with hate has not worked thus far.
I've read a lot into this actual subject. Whether violent revolution versus peaceful protest, and the numbers are very, very clear that if you want long-term change, that peaceful peaceful protest is the way to get there, right? That you're not going to get there um, with violent revolution as often, and those are typically short-lived, if anything. Um, Sorry, we're reading through a long question, guys.
Yeah, and I think that it doesn't say their name, but I think that that's an interesting point. And I think that what's really hard about this is everyone wants an easy answer. And unfortunately, this is like a complete reform of the entire system we've lived in for centuries. So it's not going to happen overnight. There's not an easy answer. There is going to need to be discussion, but I do think it's going to take everyone discussing, their point of view from whatever occupation they have to really figure it out.
We got a bit of a presidential debate going on in there. Um, Toby, it's one of my friends. Toby's kind of my boy. I don't know if you guys all knew that or not. And let's see, what time is it in New York? Is that 4 hours different from here? Glad you finally got up. Inside joke. Um, Thank you, John. Um, Same with firemen and EMTs, but they don't just have people to deal with. They have fires and medical emergencies. That's 100% true. Oh, we got a bug issue. Hold on a second. Sorry, I had to take care of a bug issue. Um, do you think if Trump gets reelected, the protests will intensify?
Ooh, I don't necessarily want to get into my views on that kind of politics, but I do think if we're taking a view at what Trump's America looks at right now and how the protests have increased under his law, then I think it's pretty clear. I think a lot of these people, these are someone chasing someone.
So people are getting chased out right now. And there's a, like, I don't know, let's see if I can get a shot of it. There literally just a whole mob of people chasing this guy out of there. I wonder how they'd feel if they knew we were sitting here doing this. We might have to leave too. Somebody says, I'm sure Villain would welcome the opportunity. Opportunity for what? Oh, I wish you had said, because Villain's a good guy, and I'd love to speak more with him. I know he's down here somewhere. I just don't know where. I'm not sure what that is, but there's a whole lot of attention going on, or a whole lot of activity going on behind us. Let's do it. Hold on, guys. I'm going to turn the camera around. We're walking over to get a view of something for you guys. So here, hold up right here. So there's an ambulance sitting right over here. A lot of the medical personnel. I got to cover you guys up for a second. Hold on. I don't know if I should film these people.
So this is like the medics. They got this ambulance.
So guys, the medics here actually bought an ambulance to have it down here to help people, which is amazing if you think about it. This is their own money that they put into this for helping people. Let's go over to this other side and get a better look at it. So it's an older ambulance, but it's still a pretty amazing gesture. So
So you don't have to worry about what's going on. We handle it. It's gone. Nothing happened. It's like furniture.
moved the furniture out. It's also a medical truck. I think it's really impressive that they've organized the point that they have medical supplies down here, an ambulance down here, and things to help people when they get hurt. And none of this is being done by the city. This is all actually being done by the civilians around here. So that's pretty interesting. Let's head back over towards where the big crowd was. Let's show them how quiet it is right now. Okay, I'll head that way with you for a second. So, you guys, somebody had said something earlier that if I had come down here a week ago, I would have seen a much different story. That's I think that's 100% accurate. Okay. Unfortunately, I wasn't here a week ago. I was here tonight, um, and you guys got to see firsthand what was here tonight. And it wasn't. Honestly, this isn't what I expected. Um, I really kind of expected it to be a whole lot more aggressive, and but honestly, it wasn't. Yeah, I'll be right here. No worries. Um, I gotta say it's kind of hilarious because she keeps a pretty tight look on me. She's worried about me getting lost or something. We have meetup points and everything else, which honestly I appreciate. That's really awesome of her. But like honestly, guys, I really did expect things to be different down here. There is tension. Okay, there is an element to this that is honestly kind of scary, and you can see it, and you can feel it in the air down here. And whether you guys ever get the chance to see this in your own life or not, I don't know, but having the opportunity to come down here and show you and get somebody's perspective that who's been down here so much, I think is really awesome. In Breathe America, we're always talking about being open to seeing other people's points of views, being open to learn from each other. And I don't know how you guys feel, but um, I've learned a lot from Lipstick being willing to come down here and talk to me and show me around and share her experiences. And I know not all of you guys agree with the things that she's saying, and I think she explained it really great. Like she only has her two eyes, and she can only speak to what she has actually seen. Um, and I don't know. I'm just very grateful that she took the time to do this with me, and and it wasn't easy to track somebody down that would be willing to do this. Um, so this is something that I'd been wanting to do for quite a while. So um, I did not see a flag being burnt down here, guys. Um, I got to be honest. If I had, this thing might have got a whole lot different because that's something that I don't like seeing, right? But that's neither here nor there. It didn't happen. I don't even like seeing them flown upside down like that. But I understand that it's their right to fly that flag, that way, I guess. And they're trying to make a statement with it. I just wish they'd make a statement in a little bit different way. Yes, Toby. Most people have two eyes. I can't believe that. That's so funny. You guys don't even know how funny that is. Um, but yeah, like I said, I expected something different. There's obviously two sides to the story. One of the things I would really like to point back out to you guys is the fact that, for somebody that's been down here every single night, she's able to recognize the fact that Fox doesn't show the story right, and neither does CNN. Like you're not getting the right information from either side. And this is something we've talked a lot about in the group. This is something that we all kind of feel. We're always looking for that accurate source of information, and I think it's important that we got some flashing lights going on. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Um, it's important that we remember that no matter what the issue is, whether it's riots or protests or whatever, it is very, very easy to show only one side of it. So, um, but she's back now. We're gonna walk over into where we just were, so you guys can get an idea of how small the group is now. Um, and then I think we're probably going to call it. We've been live now for almost 2.5 hours, and I think we've seen just about everything that we're going to see tonight. So let me turn this camera around for you guys real quick. And for those of you that are like, why is it taking so long to turn the camera around? Because it's not as easy on this app as just hitting a button like it is on a normal phone. No problem, man. And look, people even say, excuse me. See, people are even still polite down here. So we're gonna head right back up to the courthouse, and we're gonna walk right down the street in front of it so you guys can see everything. Okay. So now they're burning something. What are they burning? Oh shit! Ah, I didn't want to see this.
If you want me to, yeah, I'll sanitize everything. And you want me to?
All right, guys. We talk a lot about like defending your peace, right? And I got to be real. Watching American flag being burnt pisses me off. I don't like it. I'm never gonna like it. I'm never gonna agree with it, and that's tough for me. So yeah, I made the decision right then and there. I just tapped lipstick on the shoulder, and that was it. That was it. I'm done. I don't want to see any more. Uh, I come from a family that has fought and served that flag many different times with many different people. I have multiple nieces and nephews right now that serve, and that's a tough thing to see. I don't personally like it, but I think we were able to do what I really wanted to do here tonight, and that was to humanize this event, to humanize a lot of the people that were here, and show that there is more going on here than what people say and what we've been seeing. So, that being said, I think tonight was really productive. The crowd size, as you see, is a whole lot smaller than it was before. And it's really dying down. There's some people trying to burn some wood and stuff in the. You know them?
No, I'm just gonna tell them to turn their lights on.
Oh, and it's dying down. They're burning pallets and other stuff down there too. So It looks like it's going to die out and be a pretty calm night tonight. Again, not a single Fed came out, not a single police officer came out. I never saw at least one in uniform. I guess that doesn't mean that they weren't necessarily there. You know, who knows? So, but yeah, that's Breathe America, I guess, live from Portland riots. I want to personally thank everybody for being a part of this and all your guys' message, and you guys helped us keep the conversation going. I really appreciate that. And I want to very, very publicly tell Lipstick here how much I really appreciate her bringing me down here. That's you know, for her to put herself in jeopardy by bringing an outsider down here. That's not something these people like. And so yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And you guys, remember, be a little better tomorrow than you were today. Okay. Do something positive for yourself. Build people up. Make yourself better. Right. And most importantly, protect your peace. If you need to step back and take a breath, do it. Breathe, like somebody's been saying to me right here, because you can tell that I'm upset, which doesn't happen very often. Okay, it doesn't. But that's something that I don't like seeing. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning for my morning thoughts, and then I will also see you guys tomorrow night for another route or another protest and counter protest in Boise. Where I think we're going to be a whole lot more likely to be able to actually talk to the protesters and the counter protesters. Just because I'm from Boise and I tend to know a lot of people down there, so that should work out better. So I love you guys. Have an amazing night. God bless. Thank you.